Darren, at the moment I'd like to speak to you about the state of democracy that currently exists in Australia. A very interesting comment was made to me recently regarding government, and that comment was, "We don't do what they say, they do what we say." And a lot of people feel that the government are in fact involved in too much overreach into the lives of the people without collecting opinions from the public as to whether or not the public find this acceptable. Can I get your opinion on how you feel the government is in fact overextending their own power, their own authority into the lives of the people? It's obviously something that has become very unwelcome. The general public are not happy about this, but the politicians, the political parties, the mainstream ones at least, don't seem to be listening.
100%. I totally agree with that entire statement. In this particular time, what we're seeing is that this thing called democracy is not really a democracy. And what democracy actually is government by the people. And what that means is that you are the parliament. You are the government. Now, everybody's forgotten this particular strategy, or should I say interpretation of what democracy is, because this rule of government by the people seems to not be happening. And what it appears to be is that there is government by the political parties and their agendas. Unfortunately, when you ring up and you speak to your local member and try and get some sort of a change or be involved in government and the shaping of rules and legislation and what's happening in society, what I've heard from most people is that they get laughed at. And a lot of the time they say, well, that thing that you're actually posing to us is not in line with our political party agenda. Hold on for a second. Political party agenda? Where in democracy is there political parties? Is it not so that democracy is government by the people? And if it's government by the people, these political parties that are developed by politicians who get into power and then choose to ignore the will of the people, what's actually happened over the last 30, 40, 50 years is there's been a belief system that's been changed where people of the past knew that they were holding the balance of power in this country and that they were the parliament. And now it's slowly turned into, well, I can't do anything because the government told me to do that. And so people are accepting the government as the master and the people are acting as servants. And that's what not government, that's not what government is actually there for. Government is there to serve the great people of Australia. The great people of Australia are meant to be participating in how that government acts, because the people who are in Parliament are actually you. They are you represented. They represent you because you're out living your life. And those people are meant to be executing your will in Parliament, but as everybody knows, because you talk to everybody and everybody says, there's something not right. Well, this is what it is. There is no democracy, but they pitch to you that you still are living in a democracy. So there's this lie that's being perpetuated against you. That's my thoughts on the situation, Rob.
So it seems you're suggesting that the politicians and the political parties have lost their way in terms of acting as our representatives. They got into power by our wishes that they will enact our will. But once they're in power, then they ignore the people that put them into power and simply go on their own merry way with, as you said, their own agenda.
That appears to be so, unfortunately. When you're saying that the political parties are going on their own merry way, I don't believe that's so. I do believe there's outside influence occurring, whether it be from other countries, internationally, through the United Nations. There seems to be agendas, and you just have to go and look at the legislation. Like, for example, in the Commonwealth Crimes Act, there's legislation written to protect United Nations officers and people alike. I'm not sure why that's occurring, why these laws are being written in. Is there something that's going to happen in the future that we're not aware about, that's being planned? I don't know, but why are these laws being put into our legislative framework, a protection for United Nations representatives? It appears there's something happening underneath everything that's happening that we can see, that the public can see at view. But there appears to be a framework being installed currently, and that framework doesn't appear to be in the best interests of the Australian people.
I think there is a concept known as the invisible influence network, and what this refers to is politicians really being puppets on strings. They are presented to us as our leaders or people we can vote for who will, as I said, enact our will. But behind the scenes, there is a puppet master. The politicians aren't really the ones calling the shots, so to speak. There is an outside influence that the general public is not being told about.
100%. I do believe in America it's called the shadow government.
Yes.
I do believe most countries around the world have a shadow government. And it's my understanding that shadow government is controlled by a small group of internationalists, let's call them.
Would these be people involved in or more interested in globalism rather than nationalism?
It appears so. So these people are only concerned about their own interests, and these particular let's call them companies, because they all represent as companies. A lot of these companies have a yearly gross profit of more than some small nations, and so they yield huge power, and they can go into countries and influence governments. We can see what's happening at the moment in Victoria, for example, with Daniel Andrews and the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. The Dan Andrews government is doing business with the Chinese Communist government. Now, let's look at that. They're a state of Australia. The states have no international personality, and the states fail to have the power to actually do business with sovereign nations such as China. It's only the Commonwealth that has the power to actually do business with international countries, companies, etc. So this is actually being scrutinised by the Commonwealth Government at the moment, and I do believe Daniel Andrews has been scrutinised on these very subjects.